Find pleasure in every moment. Indulge in every whim. Let lesser races feel the burden of their crude lives. We are beyond such concerns or worries. Every power is ours to use, every sensation ours to experience. We are truly masters of the galaxy, and all others exist only to satisfy our curiosities. We have earned our position of power. Let us forever taste the fruits of such achievement. Time itself is ours to command. We are eternal. Much of the woes which ravaged the stars have been wrought by the failures of mankind, our rise waning soon after its ascension as a result of our hubris. Civil war, corruption, and galactic unrest given haste by supernatural entities. Regardless, an underlying rot would undermine every effort made in the name of the Emperor, nurtured by the calamity of species past. For today, we shall elucidate the avatar of a fallen empire, a being wrought by capricious Xenos who failed in their charge as custodians of the stars and inheritors of an unearned legacy. The Prince of Pleasure, Desire, and Excess, Slaanesh. For untold millennia, the balance of galactic power has shifted, empires rising and falling as the so-called Great Circle turns inexorably. The threshold between the material realm and the immaterium, a constant source of destruction, corruption, and suffering. Much of the woes befalling all living things is a result of the folly of a single species. The Eldari, revered as proud sorcerers capable of twisting the foundations of existence to their whim, by virtue of their bountiful gifts given by the race known as the Old Ones, their dominion stood as the longest standing of all species. Yet as wars of heaven and earth subsided, the Eldar found themselves wanting, their unfettered rulership of the stars, with no lack of nourishment, power, or intellectual pursuit, proving insufficient for their insatiable greed. Not content with uncontested dominance, the Eldar set upon themselves, enacting foul depravities within the ranks of their pleasure cults, the vices needed to sate their passions, demanding elaborate blood sports with no cost. Able to resurrect their forms once passing from the realm of death. Though the Xenos believed such debauchery to be without cost, their near-limitless collective psychic ability began to feed a hunger beyond the pale of the Sea of Souls. Though entities of the realm of chaos existed in their nascent forms, their seclusion within the warp prevented their actions from directly tipping the scale of power. Phenomena such as warp incursions or full-fledged invasions of demons, unheard of. During humanity's age of technology, of the 18th millennium, warp travel had been discovered, the unfettered expanse of humanity's domains beginning to contest the Eldari's rule, ignorant of the threat of that which lurked beyond the skein of reality. The ravages of Old Night devastating mankind's progression throughout the 25th to 30th millennium, as its inventions of machine turned against their masters. Meanwhile, the Eldar allowed such rampant bloodshed to continue as they busied themselves with their own vices. Yet as the 30th millennium dawned, their ravenous hunger for delight proved the catalyst for a being which would blight the galaxy forevermore. An entity known as She Who Thirsts. A gargantuan rend in real space, torn asunder with the birth scream of the avatar of the Eldar's depravity. The so-called Children of the Stars had damned all living beings to suffer the predations of chaos henceforth. Such a singularity, coalescing into the warp storm known as the Eye of Terror, its eruption wrought the souls from all but a tiny fragment of all living Eldar from their bodies. The Feast of Slaanesh, imbibing it with power, capable of enshrining it as the newest of the pantheon of chaos. Hiding their shame within their repositories of the craft world, known as the Black Library. Such is the cowardice of the Eldari that what remains of their species conceal the true extent of their debauchery from prying eyes, lest their glories be tarnished further. Now little more than disparate bands of refugees, desperately seeking to evade the notice of the being which they wrought. This perversion of the spirit of the Eldar mocks their self-righteous notions that they ever truly deserved to rule the galaxy. Torn from the luxurious standards of rulership to which they were accustomed, these Xenos now eke out an existence worthy of those who damned the galaxy to slow decline, their very souls destined to be devoured by the calamity which they birthed. Yet Slaanesh looked upon a verdant galaxy and saw new feasts to whet its appetite. The fall of an entire star-spanning civilization, merely an appetizer for its endless hunger for souls. The fall of the Eldar, forever changing the balance of galactic power. Never again would the children of Asuryan stand at the pinnacle of existence, their empty throne ripe for humanity to claim as its own. Each god of chaos swelling with power as their insidious presence became more pronounced. With no barrier between themselves and their harvest, a new era of conflict would soon begin. While none of the ruinous powers could ever truly be considered allies in cause, nonetheless, the rise of She-Who Firsts provided new opportunities for each to spread their influence. None of the older entities truly threatened by this Eldar god, having supped upon the desires of mortals for millennia already. The Prince of Pleasure, finding its calling as a provisioner of what may seem to be on the surface innocuous or even innocent ideals, the pursuit of happiness provided by this entity would be laced with peril. Instantly drawing upon the desires of numerous species following its birth, this universal appeal to all manner of Xenos would provide it ample patronage, some corrupting faster than others, as species such as the Laren erected shrines of worship in the name of the Lord of Excess. Feasting upon ambitions of glory, wealth, and pleasure, regardless of such vices, contentment would always prove out of reach from those that heard the siren call of this capricious god. Considered to be the only member of the ruinous powers that can be attributed as beautiful, this seemingly androgynous being, whilst referred to as she by the Eldar, is known as he by the Imperium, combining masculine traits on its left side and feminine on its right. So too do the demons of Slaanesh adopt such characteristics, including horns which sprout from their skulls, alike to those which protrude from their master's golden hair. Capable of assuming any form to best suit its needs, the Prince of Pleasure's perceived form depends greatly upon the beholder, ever eager to please those who bask in its beauty, changing to best seduce its prey. Drawing feeble nourishment from simple acts such as the loving embrace of a life partner, birth of a child, cherishment of life, and satisfaction of a daring deed, such acts are regardless not enough to sustain its form. Seeking out new scents, flavors, pains, and stimuli, She-Who First delights in the discovery of new means to arouse the senses, and thus directs its followers to pursue new enticements. Perceiving everything within the galaxy as mere toys for its amusement, every drop of sensation shall be wrung from those unfortunate enough to befall its malevolent escapades. Devising ever more elaborate contrivances to deliver Slaanesh obscene displays of suffering and pleasure alike, it is no wonder why the Adeptus Ministorum abhor even the merest indulgences in life to prevent their subjects succumbing to the enticements of She-Who Firsts. Freedom itself a vice which the Prince of Pleasure sanctions as an act of worship. The cruelest regime imaginable provides punishment and labor aplenty to stave off the influence of such a malign entity. Such totalitarian measures often driving subjects of Slaanesh closer to its embrace as an act of defiance or emancipation. Emotions such as kindness, joy, comfort, and mercy are often exploited by the perfect prince. The harsh circumstance of the galaxy guarding many from the predations of She-Who Firsts, the richest aristocrats and piratical vagabonds are among the most susceptible to corruption due to their lack of strife. Nurturing cravings, addiction, and obsession as means to give praise to its majesty. Rewards such as warp mutations allow their bearers to achieve new heights of pleasure, feeding upon fear, pain, and other cornucopia of emotional libation. Those who surrender their souls to Slaanesh, able to recover wounds at instantaneous rates, while some choose to extract their own organs to heighten their sensations of death and rebirth. Others push their pain tolerances beyond their normal limits through acts of self-flagellation. Every gift given entailing cravings which shall require further acts of worship. The parasitic latching of the Prince of Pleasure to its hosts feeds its endless hunger as it provides the proverbial antidote to its own poison. Emotions such as pride, self-accomplishment, and comfort, enacted not only by mortal souls, but even the thralls of its rival Pantheon members, aiding in its nourishment, whether knowingly or not. Typically drawing artists, charismatic orators, and trailblazers as subjects to its favor, one need only look to the despicable Drukhari as a symbol of the tenets of the Prince of Pleasure writ large. The influence of the Dark Prince, insidious by nature, this master of carnal delights, is at its deadliest the more a civilization burgeons. For the more sophisticated the society, the greater their leisures to exploit. Echoes of its birth scream residing within each and every mortal soul which roams the stars. None are beyond the clutches of this fell entity, save for perhaps those who bear the pariah gene. Anarchy, the perfect bedfellow of the Lord of Excess. The Emperor's Holy Inquisition is quick to stamp out such acts of rebellion swiftly, due to their incredible speed to which they grow. Smugglers, criminals, and recidivists, aiding the spread of Slaanesh's influence unknowingly by virtue of their aid given to its cults. Each cultist's lack of fear bolsters their proclivity to excel in martial bouts of skill. Each artisan under its thrall, creating works beyond the scope of their prior comprehension. Ethereal colours painted on fell tapestries are an affront to the eyes of sane souls, as sculptors create figures of twisted splendour using all manner of disgusting materials. The Mark of Slaanesh, combining the human sigils of male and female, these seekers of perfection in all its forms, delighting pushing the boundaries of moral virtue as they seek ever more extreme stimuli. Modifying their bodies with grafts taken from their own loved ones, whether willingly or not. Their extensive use of both flesh crafting and synthetic objects can be seen both within their mortal ranks, but also their Astartes compatriots. Yet the attentions of such a fickle entity are not won easily, and what many would consider as extreme acts of praise are a more tawdry affair for the Lord of Pleasure. Though inferior in number to the war hosts of its contemporary gods, the thralls of Slaanesh burgeon in number at a rapid pace, which if undiminished may one day rival those of its peers. Each a perversion of beauty, seen by the mortal denizens of the void with both desire and disgust in equal measure. These fulcrums of sensuality ensnare the hearts of the weak by their mere presence. Lowliest of all the war host are the demonettes, also known as maidens of ecstasy, feminine in stature, yet armed with crab-like claws, replete with immense power to crush and tear. By far the most agile of all lesser demons in melee combat, these dexterous monstrosities, when not deployed to the front lines, fulfill the every want of their overlord, as was their intended creation. Messengers, servants, and above all, gossips, these dancers of death lounge within the palace of pleasure, upon silken cushions, reveling in the grandeur of their master. Seekers of Slaanesh ride their steeds into battle, and form the core of each hunter legion. The toxin-coated tongues of their stallions, ensnaring their victims, allowing for their rider to enact the killing blow. Bipedal armored creatures resembling seahorses, these steeds of Slaanesh, also known as a machine of blissful pain, though lacking in subtlety, allow for rapid assault charges to better unleash the wrath of their demonette passengers. Hellflayers carve and slice a path through enemy lines, using claws, blades, hooks, and whips fitted to their construction. Exalted Seeker chariots, the most powerful of such steeds. 4 Seekers carry a larger platform, allowing for 4 demonettes, and even more deadly additions of weaponry to be fitted to their form. Hulking monstrosities, known as Fiends of Slaanesh, are a chimeric breed of both insectoid and reptilian traits. Their scaly tails and humanoid legs form into hoofs at their base. Lacking in intelligence, these beasts regardless reap mayhem with their front legs, set with sharp claws, prowling the proving grounds of the realm of Slaanesh, hunting one another and trespassers alike. Hit-and-run specialists who fell their enemies with precision and economy of motion. Those unfortunate enough to be struck down and live are toyed with as they allow their prey to attempt to flee. The strike of their barbed tails, enough to break ceramite plating, and stingers releasing potent venom into their enemy's flesh. These breakneck combatants bound across the battlefield, using their exceptional gait, as the sound of their bounding hooves promises a painful demise. Chanting haunting songs from their warp-twisted mouths, this discordant dirge, while pleasing to the ears of the Prince of Pleasure, is anathema to mortal psychers, as its rapid shift in pitch bursts eardrums. Ladies of the Void, specializing in breaching the Gellerfields of voyaging Imperial starships. These parodies of the sirens of seafaring legend infiltrate the minds of astropaths and navigators, allowing themselves a chance to manifest within the ships they seek to overwhelm. Horrific amalgamations of both feminine and crustacean features. These witch queens drive the inhabitants of vessels mad, turning their weapons against one another as the siren delights in its manipulations. Roaming established warp routes in search of prey. once beyond the barrier of Agellerfield, her dreadful songs numb the minds of those who hear its call, then frothing at the mouth servants, bound to its will. Ruinations, also known as the Ruination of Imperfect Beauty, or even Sensate Demon Breed of Kinnog, seek out weak-minded men to surrender to its will. For since the 8th century of the 41st millennium, these remnants of the world of Kinnog have plagued the stars. Bloated, toad-like creatures, driven by a need to build coverns comprised of 6 followers. Their mission to create perfect acts of conspiratorial murder, paintings of fell artistry, or degenerate carnal desires feast on emotions such as anger, frustration, and even delight. Destroying their coven, once their efforts of perfect creation are concluded, its feasting on the souls of its followers swells its power before searching for a new coven to lead. Heralds of Slaanesh, the most elite of all demonettes, these senior sisters are given total freedom to roam the halls of the Palace of Pleasure and stand upon the dais of Slaanesh, feeding their Dark Prince plentiful treats and massaging its skin with their oiled claws. Ostensibly, the lieutenants of each Legion of Excess under the command of the Keepers of Secrets, each bears a title befitting their nature, such as Abbess of Avarice, High Bacanti of Glue, or Artisan of Pain. Spurring its lesser kin into fervent charges when in combat, using whips and other means of encouragement. Their choreography of the agonizing waltz of combat requires their foes to be slain, with requisite emotional outcries. Establishing Slaaneshi chaos cults, corrupting the ruling class of entire worlds, and assassinating key targets which threaten the whims of their master. Some heralds known as the Infernal Enrapturouses, or Muses of Agony, Bringers of Discord, or even Heralds of the Choir Infernal, play music from harps made of their own bodies to rally their kin and unleash sonic waves of devastation. The greater demons of Slaanesh, known as the Keepers of Secrets, go by many names: the Bringers of Temptation, Feasters of Pain, Despoilers of the Flesh, and Slayers of Slaanesh. Hermaphroditic nightmares, who serve as the closest companions of the Prince of Pleasure. These generals of the Legions of Excess wear jewelry containing the trapped souls of their victims. Masters of manipulation, cunning, and seduction. These immortal beguilers whisper promises which few mortals can resist. Their invitations of desire, overwhelming to all but the most stoic souls. Capable of immense violence, should their silvered tongue be insufficient to their needs, their sadistic killing sprees are enacted with bladed claws and exotic weapons. Always supported by demonettes in their endeavors, as they gracefully cavort across the battlefield. Gorging on the emotional turmoil of warfare as a means to imbibe them with strength, their taunting and teasing of enemy champions goads them into duels fought upon ruinous red carpets of slain foes. Their masterful use of arcane knowledge allowing them to listen to the utterance of any soul they choose to eavesdrop. Such is their talent that their moniker of Keeper of Secrets is derived from this ability. Trading their stolen information in exchange for gifts of service, their spells of misdirection stoke visions of false glories, memories intertwined with past failings, and doomed pursuits of their enemies' deepest desires. Taking great pleasure when humbling the champions of their master's arch-rival, Khorne. Only the hunt for the utmost delicacy of their rampages, the Eldari, is a sweeter vintage than the blood spilled of the blood gods chosen. Demon princes of Slaanesh, comprising the mortal champions of She Who Firsts. These favored sons, also known as the Blessed Flesh and Chosen Children, are prized more fervently by Slaanesh than any other god and their respective once mortal champions. The favor of She Who Firsts, capricious in the extreme, it is not uncommon for among its most favored disciples to be spurned for the merest failing. Their ascension to the form of its chosen few merely a beginning of their worship, rather than an endpoint. Demanding ever-heightening new feasts of ambrosia from its followers as they ceaselessly toil to sate its ravenous hunger. Such acts shall inevitably run afoul for even the most ingenious concoctor, their final reward to be turned into chaos spawn, or worse punishments, for their lack of creativity. The Legions of Excess, lacking the might of Khorne, constitution of Nurgle, or esoteric scheming of Tzeentch, Slaanesh's armies rely on speed as their utmost virtue as they strike with lethal charges. Each legion led by a Keeper of Secrets, or on rarer occasions, a Demon Prince. Whilst the Flayer legions comprise mostly of demonettes, enact wars of gleeful destruction. The Hunter legions focus on cavalry charges, attempting to cripple enemy lines swiftly. The Glamiatrix legions, utilizing sorcery as their means to inflict mass mesmerism and delusion upon their foes. The Terror legions specialize in elaborate acts of gory barrages, which weaken the morale of their enemies. The legions of eternal punishments, favoring no tactic in the extreme, in deference to more well-rounded approaches to warfare. Most revered of all armies of Slaanesh is that of the Corante legions, who fight alike to an elegant dance of death. Each herald of Slaanesh, or demon prince, leading subunits known as cavalcades, under the supervision of their keeper of secrets. Every legion comprises 6 such formations, as befits the sacred number of She Who Firsts. The realm of the ruinous powers is a bleak, shifting realm of impossibilities. The domains of the Dark Prince, starkly contrasting to the Brass Citadel, Maze of Tzeentch, and fetid gardens of Nurgle. Slaanesh unique in its proclivity to invite trespassers rather than bar them from its realm, defending its domains using tests which prey upon the vices of its invaders. Tales of the Palace of Pleasure, transcribed by the rabid accounts of heretical Cardinal Wogulta, said to be centered between 6 domains contained within concentric rings of varying temptations. No conventional means of warfare can compare to such potent enticements. Such foolish souls consigned to serve a master they once sought to vanquish, whether wrought into stone statues, transformed into a thrall of its legions, or simply a morsel to sate its hunger, the fate of such pilgrims is far worse than death. Amusements of a trifling nature to the Prince of Pleasure, the greater their resistance to the call of the fell siren, only heightens the sensation consumed. Those who prove worthy of reaching the palace, personally greeted by the Lord of Excess. The first ring domain of Slaanesh, said to bear shimmering blue skies, filled with glimmering gemstones. Such are the temptations of greed, that many a raving madman clutches at such unreachable diamonds, eternally blinded by their futile efforts. Trees of pure gold line the path to the palace, filling easily bought souls with fraught elation. This paradisal land of riches, laying low many a greedy merchant or avaricious noble. Those who pass without distraction from the ruby and emerald-clad pavestones of their journey realize such baubles to be nothing more than fragments of bone, of no more value than a lie whispered within the gales of a hurricane. Should pious trespassers issue the enticements of wealth, they shall next endure the call of sustenance. The vast lake of wine beyond, dotted with pale islands, connected by bridges. The bouquet of such a phenomenon, promising a full-bodied and pleasant draught. With no cups provided, many swim within the intoxicating brew, drinking freely until their limbs begin to paralyze as they drown within its luxuriant tides. Those of keen perception, seeing the islands as the feasting tables of giants. Those not keen of drink are instead plied with exotic meats, succulent fruits, and hearty savories of untold variety. Each morsel proving more decadent than the last, to taste but a single bite damns one to gorging unto death. The voracious hunger inflicted by such a bounty, distracting those who eat from noticing that they feast upon a mass of carcasses, which they shall soon join. Past the feasting halls rest the necks of the ring domains, a pit of carnal desires, which preys upon the lascivious degeneracy of its participants. Spinning visions from the memories of those present of their greatest indulgencies of the flesh, whilst enriching them with pleasant scents and grassy fields to nestle within. Demons and mortals become intertwined, enthralling all but the strongest of will. Demonettes aplenty, offering comfort with smooth skin and gentle affections. It does not take long for those foolish enough to accept such companionship to feel their razored teeth and sharp claws burrow beneath their skin, adding to the orgy of pleasure and pain. The next domain of Slaanesh, targeting those of distinguished military careers, whose champion virtue is duty. Their fears of failure are manipulated through offerings of processions of valor, military parades of honor, and enshrining of their visage unto statues. Warriors, clerics, and mentors, not lacking for self-doubt, able to break such an illusion's hold. In truth, heaps of skeletons litter the ground in the millions, coated in the ashes of those they had slain for their glory. The fifth circle, bearing similarity to a dense forest, the canopies whisper ever louder accusations of misdeeds, as beautiful glades of carefree contentment are always within reach. Each soul dwelling on their mistakes made during their life of service to their species, empire, or comrades in arms. Those who venture to the center of such glades stare into the still waters, brooding on the past, as coiled vines gently throttle them, releasing them from their doubt. Those proven to have succeeded in all prior trials find upon the last such domain as a test of the burden of exhaustion. To survive the ordeals to this point, a venture which would beleaguer any soul, whether mortal or transhuman. struck by a vision of eternal peace, unburdening them from torment. Upon soft sands, beneath the ray of a golden sun and embrace of a cooling breeze, the soothing sensation exemplifies the simple pleasures of a life well lived and reward given gratefully. Attendants tending to such pilgrims' tense muscles as restful sleep beckons. Only those of the strongest convictions can break such a spell, driving such harpies shrieking back into the waves from whence they came. Beyond the traps and lures of the domains of the Dark Prince stands the Palace of Pleasure, a defenseless capital of demonkin with no walls, towers, or guardians. Here, Slaanesh meets with those who prove their tenacious spirit true amongst the alabaster statues and trees of perfect splendor. The songs of an unseen choir heralding its arrival as it strides forth from its throne room. Some say the palace to be no more than a humble abode, magnifying the terrible appearance of She Who Firsts. Others state it to be the most opulent structure ever given form, stretching in all directions as its shadow looms large. All that can be agreed upon is its magnificence, its edifice surrounded by gold and marble statues, which many believe to be the resting places of all who survived the trials of its domains, capturing the final moment of their ecstatic surrender. Utterly disarming those within its presence, its capricious majesty causes all to fall on bended knee and surrender their mind, body and soul to its whim. None are capable of infiltrating the Palace of Pleasure without sanction of She Who Firsts. Having no need for defense, for resistance in the face of such perfection is impossible. Those enthralled personally by the Dark Prince are beyond redemption, ensnared by such obscene power that tales of even a gleaming silver knight are said to serve eternal by the side of the perfect prince. For the master of painful delights, though the youngest of the gods of chaos, controls the malice of species which once ruled the stars. For only the master of mankind and its own malevolent kindred have proven capable of denying its allure first-hand.
Mere killing should never be enough. How much more intense is the feeling of inhaling the mist created when you vibrate a foe's body until he vaporizes? How much more completely have you explored all a person can offer you than when you breathe them into yourself, leaving only the memory of them, still a part of this world?
This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The snare of pleasure is among the most powerful vices to which a soul can surrender to. The promises of carefree joy with no strings attached, a lie propagated by those who wish to use such desires for their own benefit. While occasional indulgence is an acceptable reward for one's deeds, its pursuit with the abandonment of your responsibilities shall always prove catastrophic. Your duty to those you cherish always a finer vintage than the hedonistic delights of an avaricious life. So while you toil, do not vilify the occasional vice to maintain your morale, for it is only when one overindulges that disaster strikes. For a reward always fails to satiate one's desires, when one with little to no cost.